What's up, marketing legends, and welcome to another episode of the Growth Colony podcast. I'm producer Liza from X Growth to tell you that each episode we bring in B2B leaders to chat about how you can achieve those everyday wins in the marketing world. Whether you're new to the B2B game, working at a leadership level, or even just showing some interest, we know you'll love the episode. So wherever you are, get comfy and enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode. I'm Shaheen Hoda with X Growth, and today I'm talking to Laura Jenkins, Director of Marketing APJ at Smartsheet, about building an APAC marketing team from scratch. This is something that Laura has plenty of experience in, and I'm really looking forward to exploring that experience and chatting more to her. Laura, thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Shaheen. Delighted to be here.
Absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. So, I'd love to start with a little bit of background, right? I just mentioned that you have built a team, but if you could give a very quick background on the work that you've done and you're doing with Smartsheet, I think that would be amazing.
For sure. So first up, for those who don't know, Smartsheet it's a productivity tool, and it helps organizations to achieve more in terms of the way they work. I started coming up 5 years ago now with Smartsheet, and it's quite a well-known brand in the US, but not so well-known out here. So we put first boots on the ground 5 years ago, and I was the first marketing resource or a one-woman marketing band, as I like to say, when I first began. And we were pretty scrappy back then, really, although we had the luxury of being a listed New York Stock Exchange listed organization. We were very much operating like a startup type environment here, being a brand new region. We had a few US staff who flew across to help get us established. But otherwise, we were all completely new to the business. So I was really excited by the opportunity to come into a business that had a great track record in the US, and that I could see that there was a strong need for the tool here in Australia, and have the opportunity to build out that marketing function and help drive our growth here in region, which is what we've been doing over the last 5 years. So I can talk a little bit about how I went from one woman marketing band into building out a team of now 5 or 6 local marketers on the ground in this part of the world. And yeah, just to give you a little bit of a glimpse into how that happened. When I first started, COVID hit, and it was a challenging time because, as you know, Shaheen, the world turned upside down. Everybody started working remotely, and it actually, from a Smartsheet business perspective, meant that people needed to be working using tools to help them work smarter, not harder, and needed tools that would allow them to collaborate. So in many ways, COVID helped to fuel the growth of Smartsheet because people needed a tool that could help them to work remotely and across dispersed teams. So that was really interesting timing to be wrapping my head around the business with all of that playing out in the background. But I think one of the first challenges that I faced when I joined the team was coming on board and just having that feeling of so much to do, and where on earth do I start? I'm a one-person team. I've got not as much budget as I would ideally like to have. I don't have enough hours in the day to be doing everything that I need to be doing. And I think for anybody listening who has been in a high-growth organization or a scale-up type role, when you are starting out as a single operator, you are doing both that execution and the strategy. So you're setting the direction, but you're also rolling up your sleeves and delivering on that. And I'm not going to lie, it wasn't easy, and they were challenging times, but the ride was fun. And I can now sit here 5 years on and look in the rearview mirror and say, wow, we did come out the other side. But I think in terms of that challenge of not enough time, one of the first things that I did was to think, how can I leverage what we've already got? So being a US headquartered organization, I was very fortunate to have a US marketing team based out of Seattle, Bellevue in Washington. And I was able to learn from a lot of the campaigns they'd already implemented, the mistakes they'd made, the learnings that they had that I could pull through straight away. And I think that was a real bonus early on, was being able to just inherit those learnings and then also pull through a lot of the assets that they'd already built. And then all I needed to do was localize those assets. So I think that was the first piece. The second piece was working really closely with my counterparts in the UK, and they were a couple of years ahead of us in terms of the Smartsheet journey. So they had opened their office a few years ahead of us. So they had some locally produced campaigns that had quite a lot of relevance in Australia and the APJ region that I was then able to take and quite quickly implement here in the region. So they were two quick wins, being able to pull through existing assets from within the global organization. The third thing that I was able to do was to bring on a local agency. And I did that pretty quickly, and that really helped me to scale and to be able to leverage that local team who are in the same time zone to be able to develop locally led campaigns. And that was everything from content to creative, but having that local team was immensely valuable in those early days, in particular, when I really needed the support, both from a manpower perspective, but also taking into account things like time zone and the like. So I'll pause there, Shaheen.
Interesting. Yeah, there's so much there. There's so much to explore. I mean, first of all, I would say is it's fascinating. It's very rare that you'd hear a senior marketing leader being in a tech company for 5 years. It's not common. You don't hear it very often. That's the truth of it. So like kudos to you. And that is amazing. With regards to, you talked about kind of leveraging UK and US campaigns that were already executed. Maybe the first question I have there is, what were the difference between the two? Like, why not just go and get all the US stuff, or just focus on the UK? Were there differences that you would see between the two, or they would address different things that you leveraged both of them?
There were. So the US campaigns and the UK campaigns differed in that the US programs had been developed in the US, and they were fully integrated campaigns that we had the ability to pull through. But the UK had developed bespoke campaigns that were more specific for that region, and they'd done that in conjunction with a local agency on the ground in London. So there were differences in the two, but we were able to take a little bit of A and a little bit of B and pull both of those through to give us something to get going with reasonably quickly to begin with. So to give you a more tangible example, if you like, the US campaigns that we were pulling through were ebooks that had been written that we could run digitally as a lead gen initiative. There were event formats that we could clone and bring through. Whereas in the UK, we were pulling through very bespoke programs that they had run. So the one that we pulled through at the time was a user testimonial style campaign that they had implemented to help drive user love or showcase user love. And we were able to just take the creative and the concept and bring that through and replicate that in our market. So it's a little bit of both.
Got it. And I'm also curious to, on that very note of like leveraging assets from the UK and the US, how has that evolved over time for you specifically?
So when I think about planning, and we're coming up to another planning cycle now as we enter a new fiscal year at Smartsheet, which begins on the 1st of February, we pull through the tentpole campaigns that the US are developing. So there will be moments throughout the year where we have campaigns that, as an organization, we want to deploy those campaigns globally across all markets. So that's step one, is looking at what are those tentpole moments. Then the next thing that I do is I'll work closely with my counterpart in the UK to get an understanding of the local campaigns that they will be running with their agency on the ground, and vice versa. They can understand what campaigns we're likely to be running during the year. And then where it makes sense, we may decide to deploy some of those locally led campaigns across both of those geos, or just keep them within the region itself. So I'd say it's evolved in that we've got a little bit better at pooling our resources, just as we've now been around 5 years here, where we're in a good rhythm of planning cycles and understanding when agencies are working on briefs and what have you, and then really being able to leverage the ideas that are coming out of the different markets and pull through what makes sense for our particular region.
Yeah, got it. Okay. On a slightly different note, you and I have had a chat before where you mentioned that at least locally, it could be in general it's Smartsheet, but at least locally, Smartsheet team is quite a sales-led organization. There's a very strong sales-led motion inside. What did that mean to you? What did that mean to you? And what does it mean today? How do you navigate that? Because I feel like that's a very common component, international or US or UK HQ'd organizations setting up a satellite office in the region. And there's a strong sales motion behind it. Very keen to hear how you have navigated that in the past couple of years.
Look, I think all B2B marketers out there will identify with the marketing and sales relationship that comes with being a B2B marketer, and it's just part of the gig. And I think at Smartsheet and other tech companies that are very results led, it's a non-negotiable that you need to work hand in glove with the sales team. So I work extremely closely with our regional sales leads. At the moment, we have a regional lead for ANZ, for Asia, and also for Japan, which is a newer market that we've added into the mix. And then we have a managing director who sits across all three. So that relationship looks like weekly one-on-ones. It looks like group go-to-market calls where we've got the broader team, so their direct reports included in those catch-ups. My team, who have regional responsibility, also have one-on-ones with each of their regional sales teams on a weekly basis as well. So I think that constant communication is really, really important. We also use our product, so we use Smartsheet to help provide notifications to the sales team when we need them to do something. So if there's an event coming up and we need nominations, what customers would you like to invite to this event? We will use Smartsheet to trigger automations at appropriate times out to the sales team, asking them to nominate their clients for XYZ event. So we use technology to our advantage, and that really helps us when we are managing such a busy event schedule. It really helps us to be able to keep on top of all of the asks that we need to put forward to the sales team. So I'd say meetings, I'd say technology, I'd say quarterly business reviews is something that Smartsheet's very big on. Again, this won't come as a surprise, or it's nothing new to anybody who works in a sales-led organization, but we're very metrics focused. So we're looking at business performance. Have we hit our target? What does our pipeline health look like? More recently, we've started looking at marketing forecast pipeline so that we're able to provide, now we've got 5 years of data under our belt, a more considered view of how much pipeline we expect the marketing team is going to contribute to that overall pipeline target for the quarter ahead. So that's something that we're looking at routinely. And if our forecast is shy of the overall number that we need to reach as a business, then hey, what can we do to close the gap? So there's a lot of quick win type campaigns that we're always looking to implement in that situation, where we will get together as a go-to-market team and we'll think really creatively about, okay, what can we do to close the gap quickly? And what, for others who work in organizations where you've got not necessarily a quick sales cycle. It can sometimes take up to 3-4 months, depending on the size of the organization, especially as we're moving into those enterprise size deals. It can be really valuable to have that insight as to have those campaigns that are going to deliver pipeline quickly, so that we're able to deliver that pipeline in the quarter, rather than turning on a campaign now that might deliver pipeline in 4-6 months time from now. So it's yeah.
Got it. Laura, one of the things that I hear a lot of marketers, again, especially marketers who work for international organizations in the region, talk about is, they don't have control over everything, right? And their control is limited. Maybe they only have control over field activities, right? Maybe they have, if it's like the next level, maybe they have some demand gen activities. Maybe if they're, really lucky, maybe they have some brand kind of marketing budget. Very keen to hear your thoughts, and I don't know how much you can share, but what has been your journey on that front? From managing, what elements of marketing from Smartsheet are you able to manage in the region?
This is a great question, Shaheen, and one that I'm happy to answer now, in that things have changed a little bit for us over the years. So when we first started, the marketing budget that I owned within the region was specific just to field events and field campaigns, and other functions like PR, like demand gen, like customer evidence, all had a separate budget that was owned by a US owner. Website's another one, localization is another one, and just most recently, what we've done is we've actually brought ownership of all of those budget lines into the region. So I've got that overall ownership for a total number for APJ, which is inclusive of all of those different functions. However, I still work very closely with all of the cross-functional leads over in HQ, who own that particular niche or that channel in terms of the execution of those areas of the business. So we've certainly matured a little bit in terms of the way that we now are structured in that regard. But it is challenging when you have a US headquartered organization that's got a web team, a social team, a PR team, and then you have these regional offices that need to do all of those things. But you still need to have alignment to the US strategy and way of doing things. So it is quite a delicate balance of having that ownership, but at the same time, we don't want to go completely free range either in the region and be doing something that is disconnected with the global strategy when we think about those channels. So it's a bit of a delicate dance. But in many ways, it's like oh, go ahead, Shaheen.
No, I was going to say that's a great point, because I would guarantee you there are going to be some marketers who are listening to this right now and they're like, oh my God, if I could only get a hold of our PR budget or our, budget for that, like some of the content creation or whatever it is, that would be amazing. What would be your advice to a marketer who's listening to this and they're like, what argument can I put forward to have a chance of kind of transferring maybe all of that or some of that budget for my region under me, so that I can then make better local decisions? What any kind of tips or advice for anyone on that front?
The first thing I'd say here is that you really need the support of executives when it comes to major decisions like that. And it doesn't make sense to have one set of rules for APJ that may not then apply to EMEA or to other territories that Smartsheet operates within. So you need executive alignment from the APJ leader, the EMEA leader, and then the marketing leadership in HQ, so that everybody's aligned on, hey, this is the change that we're going to make and this is how we're going to do things. So as a senior marketer in this part of the world, it's my role to advocate up the line for that change. And I think one of the key benefits that we pitched in terms of making that change come to fruition was the ability to have a little bit more agility and flexibility in the region. By having that full ownership of the total number, we were then more accountable for the overall results that we were seeing in the region aligned to that spend, and also able to transfer funds between lines within the budget where needed. So I think agility was one of the main factors there. And the other thing I'd say is as a regional marketing lead, it's a more holistic view as well. If you've got that overall picture of all of the different line items that roll up to your total number, it provides you with that all of marketing view versus just having a field event / campaigns view for the region. So we had a strong case, but it can be a tricky one to drive, dependent on your back end systems and processes and the way that things may have always been done.
Yeah, very true. Very true. I think those are great points. Okay. The other question that I have is we touched a little bit on building the strategy. I'd also love to hear, how you talked about kind of you brought in agencies at the beginning, and then kind of relying on the US and the EMEA campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
How are you approaching execution today?
Mm-hmm. So this is a big question, Shaheen. So we take the global tent poles that I mentioned before. Actually, I'll take a step back. We look at the corporate goals to begin with. So as a company, what are we trying to achieve? Okay, this is step one. Like I said a moment ago, we don't want to be going free range over here in APJ with something that's completely misaligned to what the global organization is trying to do. So staying connected to that HQ is absolutely critical. So step one, look at the corporate goals. Step two, work with the global marketing teams to really understand their plans for the year forward. So have they got any new tentpole campaigns, any big initiatives that will be deployed globally or that we might like to deploy globally if they're not thinking about that yet, and starting to plug those in. And then we fill the gaps with our local elements. So we think about what are the local campaigns that we want to develop with an agency. So account-based marketing, for example, is something that we're playing around with at the moment, just within our region versus running that as a global program. And then once we've filled in the gaps with the local programs, we need to make sure then that the spend that we are attributing to each of those initiatives is weighted appropriately across the different regions within APJ. So if we have, say, a 70% sales target coming out of one area within APJ, let's say it's ANZ, then we need to ensure that our marketing budget appropriately aligns to that sales target, and we're investing more of our overall pot towards ANZ marketing initiatives versus initiatives in, say, Japan. So it's making sure that the weighting looks appropriate so that we are supporting the sales teams effectively. And then I think moving into execution, then we need to think about what's worked for us before. What did we do last year that worked really well? What didn't work? And I think this is one of the things that I just think you can never underestimate is taking the time as a marketer to step back from the business, especially when you're in planning times. But I think ordinarily making this a part of your routine on a monthly, quarterly basis at the least, just to stop, put down the tools, step away from the Zoom calls, and just think deeply about what's working for me, what's driven real success for the team in this last period of time, what hasn't worked. And then, are we trying to do too much? Are my people overwhelmed? Are my people feeling really troubled because there's a certain process that's making their lives difficult and everything much harder than it needs to be? And I think if you can just slow down just to think about the bigger picture, then that can really help you to make a more informed plan for the period ahead. Something that we are looking at doing right now is doing less, but doing bigger and better. And so fewer, bigger, better is my mantra at the moment. And there's a tendency when you work for a company that's relevant to a lot of industries to just want to do everything, want to be everywhere. Oh, this event's relevant, that event's relevant. Oh, we could go down the industry path, and then there's a dozen different industries that are all relevant, and you can just find yourself spinning the wheels because there is so much that you can be doing, that I think getting really clear on what are the initiatives that we believe in, that we are going to support, that we're going to invest in, rallying the team around those initiatives, and then doing those exceptionally well, and getting better at saying no as well to the a million and one opportunities that are going to come across your desk each day.
I think the point that you bring up with regards to, slowing down and taking a step back and looking at things is very important. And I want to explore that with you in terms of how you do it, if it's just the QBRs or you have a practice yourself that, you do that, because I find, in most of the APAC teams are not under-resourced, but it's not as big as EMEA or definitely not as big as the US team, where there are a lot of people and therefore the responsibility can be shared easily. And I also believe in exactly what you said, where if you're in the field, you won't be able to see the whole field, right? You're in the weeds. You're in that little spot, and if you have to roll up your sleeves and do that, it's extremely hard to be able to see the big picture because you're in there. And so my question is, do you primarily leverage the QBR sessions to do that? Do you set aside, half a day each week or every 2 weeks or every month? Or how do you kind of, what is your practice for stepping back and trying to address some of those questions that you just brought up?
I have a meeting-free Monday, and I am reasonably good at keeping it that way. Occasionally there'll be one or two things that sneak in, but for the most part, I try my very hardest to keep Mondays meeting free, and that works really well for me because once a month I dedicate a day once a month to be thinking about the programs, the team, the problems. I recap on my key projects I'm working on, my key areas of focus. I never want to have more than 10 projects on my list, and that's across my life and my work, because it's just not manageable to do more than that and to do those well. So I think once a month I'm looking at all of those things. I'm thinking about systems. What systems have I got in place to help automate things? Let's use AI. Let's use technology to help make things easier. We are big advocates, as I've mentioned earlier, of using Smartsheet to make our lives easier. And fortunately, marketing is a target audience for Smartsheet. So we've got a lot of good templates and best practices that we're fortunate enough to be able to leverage. So I think it's just stepping back to think about all of those things and making sure that you're not interrupted with Zoom meetings and reactive work.
I really like that. Meeting-free Mondays. Okay. Laura, I have some rapid fire questions for you. You ready to jump into those?
Let's do it.
Okay. So the first one is, what is one resource? This could be a book, a blog, a podcast, whatever it is that has had a pretty fundamental impact on the way you either work or you live. What comes to mind? And if there's more than one, we will take it.
I would say Cal Newport's Deep Work. I am a bit of a productivity junkie, if you like. I love reading and learning about ways that I can work more efficiently. I became that way when I had 2 children, and all of a sudden had a lot more things in my week to organize. And I really did love a lot of the principles in that book, which talk about, it's basically making time for the work that matters and making it a practice to have scheduled time in your day to work on the hard things, to do the real work. And so I'm not talking about responding to emails and Slack messages and attending Zoom calls. I'm talking about dedicated, uninterrupted time where you are helping to drive the business forward. You're writing a strategy document, or you're writing a business case, or you might be doing a job description for an important new role that's required on your team, or whatever it might be. But I think it's really essential that you do proactively make time for the important work, or otherwise it's so easy to just find yourself being flowing in the wind with all the different things that are coming at you in all different directions. So I think that's one I would certainly encourage everyone to go and take a look at if you're also interested in improving the way that you work. I think Cal Newport's just he's an absolute legend when it comes to all things productivity, and there's a bunch of other good books in the same realm. But I'll leave it there for now, Shaheen.
Okay. I'm hearing this message of making time for important things coming up over and over, which I love. And it's so simple, but it's so hard at the same time. So I love that. Okay. So question number 2. If you could give one piece of advice to B2B marketers, what would it be?
It would be to get clear on your priorities. So there's always a million things to do. Work out those that are going to drive the most impact and focus in on those. So actually another book for you, Shaheen, Essentialism. I think the principles in that are really universal, and they help you succeed no matter what industry you're in, whether you're a B2B marketer or salesperson or doing anything else. I think it's just get clear on what matters, what's important, and like I said earlier, do less, but do it bigger and better.
I love it. I'm a book geek, and I love that the fact that you're dropping these nuggets left and right. Okay. Question number 3. Who are some of the influencers? Yeah, I mean, influencers, thought leaders, subject matter experts, whatever you want to call them, that you keep a close eye on.
I'm a big fan of Mark Ritson and Thomas Barta out of the UK. So actually both Mark and Thomas have marketing programs, the MBA, and there's also the marketing MBA, and there's also a marketing leadership masterclass, both of which are really valuable training programs available for marketers anywhere in the world. And then locally, I would say a fellow called Axel Sukianto, who posts some great, very thought-provoking content online as it relates to B2B marketing. And he has more recently pulled together a few B2B marketing events and also a B2B Slack community to connect local B2B marketing individuals within Australia and beyond. So I think I would give a shout out to Axel on that one as well.
Awesome. I love it. Last question. What is something about B2B marketing that excites you today?
I would have to say AI. And everyone's saying AI these days, so don't laugh, Shaheen. But I really do think the tools that are becoming available for B2B marketers are really going to revolutionize the way in which we work and the speed at which we work. So one example of a tool that me and my team are loving right now is a tool called SparkAI, and it calls itself an event concierge for content creation and brainstorming. If you've got any event to run, you can go into SparkAI and you can use it to repurpose your content. It can build agendas for you. It can come up with event session titles. It can even create social media content for you, speaker bios, and it'll do the whole thing in minutes. So I think that is pretty phenomenal technology and gives B2B marketers a huge leg up in terms of running these events, and if anything, it can give you some great ideas and a good starting point from which you can then take those ideas and then make them your own. So go and check it out if you haven't already. I'm sure there's a million other great AI tools for B2B marketers, and there'll be even more to come, no doubt.
Laura, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I thoroughly enjoyed this chat. I definitely took a lot of notes and a few things that I want to go back and check out. So really appreciate your time and really appreciate you sharing all this insight.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Shaheen. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Today's episode of Growth Colony was produced by Liza Maywald and Alexander Hipwell. It was edited by Dave Samito with additional editing by Liza Maywald and music arrangement by Liza and Alexander. Special thanks to Tina Wabe. We couldn't make this show without you. This episode was hosted by Shaheen Hoda, Director of Growth at Xgrowth. If you enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe and give us a rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. If you'd like to know more about Growth Colony, check out our newsletter and subscribe with the link in the pod description. Do you think you'd be a great guest or just interested in a chat? Send through an email at podcast@xgrowth.com.au. That's podcast@xgrowth.com.au. Or fill out the form in the description. That's all for now. We'll catch you next week right here on Growth Colony.